Hi, welcome to the Foundation's Conversations at Home. I'm Jenelle Riley from Variety. Before we speak to our guest today, I want to let you know that the Foundation has set up a COVID relief fund in order to support thousands of union performers who are going through tough times. Since March, thanks to your donations, the Foundation has given over $6.1 million in emergency aid to more than 6,600 performers and their families. If you are a SAG-AFTRA member and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. And now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce an actor, singer, and producer. She can play any role in any genre. She is also on the SAG-AFTRA Foundation Actors Council and has actively been working with us on our COVID relief efforts. Please welcome Nicole Kidman.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much.
I'm so glad you made that introduction, because it's so important to keep reiterating how much it's still, the support is so needed, and the fundraising efforts are really important, and the donations are so appreciated. And so constantly keeping that in the conversation so that people know there's still so much work to be done and so many people in need, so many actors. So anyway,
I mean,
that said,
that's got to be the nightmare for an actor, right? That you literally can't work. When this shutdown started, I was just terrified for so many of my friends.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at the way in which this industry is structured, we're in the position where when we go to work, we don't get to wear masks because we start with the mask on, but when you shoot the scene, you have to take your mask off and you're exposed. You're one of those workers who is in jeopardy, so it's a very frightening thing. And having worked that way, as stepping into my producer role, going, we have to make these actors feel safe. We have to, one, give them work and do everything we can to rally and make sure we can give them work. And that means pushing, things up a mountain, but at the same time going, but when we do create work, we then have to go, it's going to be safe for you too. And that's, that's something that's so important. And I think people sometimes go, oh my gosh, it's over the top, all these sort of protocols and things, but they're so the work environment for all of the actors can come to work and go, you're taking care of me. You're not putting me in jeopardy for your own cause. And I love being able to do that. So
I'm actually so excited to talk to you about your work as a producer, which is a nice, you have a nice fallback career if the acting thing doesn't work out. But I actually want to go back to the beginning, and because this is a SAG-AFTRA audience.
But actually, when you say that was part of the reason I became a producer, is because I was 40, I was pregnant, I was in a position where my career was on a sort of a downward trend, and I was like, this feels awful, literally, where you'd go, will they consider me for the job, or can I get a look in for it? And they'd be like, no, they don't like you, whatever you. And I was like, oh gosh. And I went, so how do I somehow, make this and find things that I can take some sort of control of where I'm going now, particularly as a woman at that stage of my life, where you're told, well, this is kind of, there is this trajectory. There's a few, anointed few who get to surpass that. And you look at Meryl and you look at those people, and Jessica Tandy, I used to hold her like going, Jessica Tandy worked all the way through, but there still isn't enough, but there wasn't that path. So that was sort of the reason I became a producer.
Wow.
Ultimately. To try and take control of our destiny, which I think any actor would say is probably one of the hardest things, is we don't have a lot of control.
Right. And I believe you founded Blossom Films, your production company, 10 years ago?
I'm so bad with numbers. I've turned into that person.
Well,
it might be more than 10 years ago. Yes, more than 10 years ago. And really, we're a lean and mean. As much as it sounds like some massive production company, it's not. I think you've met my producing partner. We have 2 other people who work for us who are young, wonderful, really smart, young people in the industry, and that's it. So it's not some massive thing, and we've always, we pride ourselves on being workers and passionate and supporters of all sorts of stories and ideas, and very, very committed to putting female directors into the equation in a really balanced way. So
I really want to talk about that because you made a vocal pledge back in 2017 that you would work with a female director every 18 months. And you've actually surpassed that. You work with a lot of female directors. You have since the start of your career.
Yes.
I don't know if even when you were starting out, if that was something you were doing consciously or you were just sort of drawn to those stories.
Probably drawn to women and drawn to the nurturing aspect of that as a young actress, and knew Jane Campion when I was in a little tiny drama school, and she sort of discovered me. I was 14. I was on the stage doing Sweet Bird of Youth.
What role?
No, I would have been 13, and I was playing the princess in Sweet Bird of Youth. Hey, it's called stretching. I can do it. I didn't understand even what I was doing, but she saw my swagger, as she said, and responded to that. So, but it's just so interesting how things happen. But I would take myself off. I'd catch a bus and a train. I'd travel for an hour and a half on a Saturday morning. I'd get up at 6 a.m. and I'd get myself organized, pack my little thing, because my parents wouldn't be able to drive me because they would have had a party the night before. And I'd be like at my class by 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. And I loved it. It wasn't like, oh, I've got to do this. It was, I couldn't wait for Saturdays. And I would do history of drama. I would do movement. We would do tap dancing. We would do plays where we would study the text. So it was just, at that age of 13, 14, kind of my salvation and the thing that rescued me in a way, because I was, a tall, skinny, redheaded girl who couldn't go to the beach and wanted to get lost in my creative world and imagination.
Were you just having fun, or did you know even then that you wanted to do this for a career?
I mean, the idea of doing it as a career was so far-fetched. It was more like that was the dream, but by gosh, you better have a backup plan, because the dream is probably not going to happen. I mean, in the Australian film industry, it wasn't like there was an industry big enough to sustain a career. You would work intermittently is what we were sort of, what we knew to be true. And so it was always like, okay, well, this is kind of something that's off in the future, and wow. And then, make sure you get good grades. And I would go, well, I'll probably have to. And I worked as an usher. I worked as, I worked in a store. I worked, did all sorts of little jobs to get money to pay for my tuition, like every other actor out there, pretty much. Right. And then I was so lucky to get a job. And I was in a thing called Bush Christmas. And then I was in a thing called BMX Bandits.
Yes, love it.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got a paycheck. And I was just a worker. I was the worker bee. I was the one that was like, okay, I will learn on the job. I'm going to make my mistakes on the job. I'll try out for everything. I'll be out there and just trying. But I loved it, and I still love it.
I think for a lot of us, we first saw you in 1989's Dead Calm, which was an Australian movie, but it was.
I'm glad you didn't see the BMX Bandits then.
No, I love BMX Bandits. I genuinely do. It's part of my childhood. It's a fun movie. but I discovered
very difficult acting. Very, very difficult.
But I have to imagine Dead Calm was a major turning point in your career. I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that sort of what caught Hollywood's eye?
Well, strangely enough, it was a limited series called Vietnam, which was the thing I did. And it was about the Vietnam War. It spanned a 10-year period. It was an Australian miniseries, what we called a miniseries at the time. And that was when I first started working for Kennedy Miller. And that was George Miller's company. And it was a fantastic role. I got to age from 14 to 24 in it. And I played a girl who was an activist during the Vietnam War and whose brother was a conscientious objector, and all of the way in which that family was affected by the war. So it was a great, great piece of drama, Australian drama. And then Dead Calm kind of came along, and they actually rewrote the role and made it younger. So because of my age, and I was just incredibly fortunate to have the support of that whole company of Kennedy Miller, and there was a group of directors there who were Philip Noyce and John Digan and George Miller and Terry Hayes, and they all gave me, this wonderful chance to work. And then I'd go back to school.
Really?
Yeah. And I'd be so far behind, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail my exams. And I reluctantly say this to people, but I left school when I was just before I turned 17.
Really?
I did. Because I wanted to get out there in the world, in the industry, and I wanted to work, and I figured I'd gotten my education. I'm not saying this is for other actors out there. This was a strange path, but yeah. And I still would do correspondence courses, and I would study. I'm still a huge studier. I'm big in, I research things. I read all the time. I'm deeply into history and the way I'm preparing for a character with all of that, information. So, and I'll also do acting classes still, and I study accents still.
Really?
Yeah. As I say, I'm always a student. I will always be a student. And I pride myself on that, because I just am not the person that sits back and goes, yeah, ask me a question, I know how to do it. I'm always like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Hopefully I have a little bit now, but I'm willing to change, I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to mold myself and adapt.
Do you do private lessons, or do you actually go to a class and like other students are there with Nicole Kidman in their acting class?
No, I don't so much go to a class now. I would love to do a master class at some point, or do some of those things where I'm engaging with students. I do private lessons. Like right now, I'm doing movement classes because I'm going to play Lucille Ball. So I have a particular stance and a particular way of working. So I have to adjust myself now physically. So that's I'm putting in, time with that, having the time to do it. I'm also working on the dialect really intensely, an hour and a half, 2 hours a day right now. So it's the hard yakka right now, which I just go, okay, show up and do it, show up and do it, show up and do it, show up and do it.
Wow.
Yeah. Hopefully it pays off. But it won't. I always say I don't want to look back and go, I wish I'd worked harder, or I wish I'd just kind of not coasted along. The thing I can do is do the prep and show up. And then a lot of the other thing is really, with the acting gods, where you go, this will either work or it won't. It'll connect or it won't. But it won't be because I didn't show up grateful and willing.
I was going to say, have you ever coasted? I don't think I can cite a single performance of yours where I felt like you were going through the motions.
I hope not. I hope not. I think, I've definitely not achieved what I hoped, or I always say, if it didn't work, it's because I couldn't make it work. I'll take the blame. Absolutely. I'm not happy to, but I will shoulder that. Because I'm like, okay, well, it just didn't work. I just didn't make it work. And that's heavy, you know. At times that can be really a blow, and it can hit me really hard, and it can take a while to recover the confidence and those things. But I'm absolutely willing to be responsible and be accountable if something didn't work because for whatever reason I wasn't good enough in it. Coasting, no, I haven't. I haven't coasted. I'd be ashamed if I coasted, partly because, and this is a group of actors we're talking to, partly because everyone knows a job is a job. It's thank you. I think there's an amount of ingratitude if you're not going, thank you. Okay, thanks for this chance. And it's very touching to me watching actors show up, no matter how big their role is, prepared and willing. I mean, it honestly makes me cry because I see I don't know what it does. It touches me because it's a very, very pure, beautiful thing when people show up offering their talent and their heart and their willingness to work on a set and expose themselves. It's extremely vulnerable, as any actor will tell you.
Yeah.
You're vulnerable, deeply vulnerable, and it's personal. So.
But oftentimes you're not in control of the final product, so you can't always blame yourself if something doesn't work.
No, I'm working on that. Yeah. No, that's true. But you know that it hurts. It's like, gosh, and it's very frustrating if you're on a set and you can't make a scene work and trying to, and I'm like, you know, and there's times when the one thing I've really learned is that sensation of relaxing and going, it will come. If it's not working the worst thing is when you see terror on a director's face because they're really worried because it's not working and they're looking at you going, that's it. That's that's like, that's a knife to the gut. But to then relax into that and go, okay, I can bring my experience, I can bring what I know to be my talent and go, if you help me, we can get there, you know? And I say that to actors, that it's so much of it is, yes, you work, but then you relax. And there's a flow that happens and a trust and the ability to look at your partner and go, we're going to do this together. And I've had that so many times. And leaning in to the other actor is so important. Working with.
Absolutely. When you have a great scene partner too, like obviously most recently you did The Undoing with Hugh Grant. And I was so pleased to see the two Paddington villains come together. And you felt like a married couple. And I think I read somewhere that you'd kind of been badgering him for years to do something with you.
I'd wanted to work with Hugh for a long time. Hugh and I have a very similar sense of humor, but we'd known each other for a long time, which always helps because there's you're not creating a chemistry. There's a chemistry there. But I remember on The Undoing when Edgar Ramirez showed up and he was like, he hadn't been able to rehearse because he was on another job and he'd flown in and he came in and we had a huge scene and he was so good. And I was like struggling going, I was tired. I'd been shooting every day and I was carrying the weight of that role. And I just remember looking at him and going, great, this energy from this actor right now is everything that I need. And I've just got to allow that vibration and that energy between us to exist and trust it and go with it. And he carried me. And then in the interrogation scenes with him as well, there was some days where it was just like we shot, 12, 14 hours, with all of that dialogue and me being interrogated and the really tight shots and all the things. And both those actors, one of them was actually a real policeman, and he was an actor. Yeah. And so I just had to really trust them that they would get me there and that the energy that they were giving to me would then really ignite my performance. And it did. So I love talking about that. And then the relationship between Donald and I was so father-daughter.
Amazing. Oh, I was so convinced he did it for so long.
Why? Because he went and threatened the headmaster?
Because he's Donald Sutherland. And Donald Sutherland shows up. You know he's up to no good.
I just would like see Donald and be like, oh, he was so soothing to me. Yeah. He reminds me of my dad, who's not here anymore. And I was just soothed by him. He's also wise. He just carries all this wisdom and these extraordinary stories, and he's a fantastic actor. I mean, we were so blessed to have all those actors. Noma, who came in, Lily, Rabe. I mean, you're talking all of them. Matilda. I mean, it's just like we were inundated with talent in that show. And that is an ensemble, you know. Oh, yeah. That's what an ensemble does.
I was pretty convinced Lily did it for a while too, actually. Come on.
Well, here's a story. So we're standing in the courtroom, and the first assistant director, we've been in that courtroom for a long time. Those sequences are long and intense. And suddenly the first AD just screams out to all of the people who are sitting there, all of the other actors and the extras who are in the scene, who do you think did it? And I'm like sitting there, and everyone pointed at me. And I was like, oh, thanks a lot. Throw the woman under the bus. It's always the woman. And we couldn't answer, you know, because we don't want to give the ending away. But literally everyone, I'd not said a word. I sit in that courtroom for most of that courtroom responding, and everyone thought it was me.
I had a friend who was convinced it was you because of the late night walks. And yeah, she just kept coming back to that. And I was like, she's like, she knows New York really well. And she's like, nobody just happens to walk past that area.
Right. But I did. Because sometimes, yeah. And that's what I love about the show, is that it's actually, it didn't take the cheap thrill, where it is truly about what's right in front of you and how we convince ourselves, and it's happening now, convince ourselves that it's not real, that what we know with all of the facts, and still so much of the audience, and we're talking like 80% of them go, no, I don't want to believe that. No, it can't be true. I find that a really interesting study on human beings. And that's why it's so beautifully written by David E. Kelley.
I can't remember the last time that I really saw a show where people wanted to watch the moment it was on and waited for each week. Like, I remember texting with a friend, the one who thought you were guilty. And it was always like the night before, it'd be like, undoing tomorrow. Like, that hasn't happened in years.
No, it's a wonderful part of still that the system that HBO has, which is not sort of dropping everything and allowing people to binge it immediately. There is something to be said for that. Mm-hmm. I've always said that the state of yearning and desire is not a bad state to exist in. It's really not, though. It's so underestimated, right?
Right.
The actual getting of something sometimes isn't as satisfying as the yearning and the waiting. Mm-hmm. It's a different experience, but we underestimate the power of that sensation and that emotion.
It can be fun.
In life, not just waiting for a TV show.
I actually want to come back to The Undoing when we get to your producing career, but I want to go back to the start of your American film career, because right out of the gate, I mean, you started with Days of Thunder, then you took on, you were starring opposite Dustin Hoffman and Billy Bathgates. You were working with the best of the best from the beginning. And was it challenging to sort of navigate this new life in a new country in a spotlight?
Yeah, it was really challenging. It was sort of like going in and auditioning with Dustin Hoffman. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm auditioning with Dustin Hoffman. I mean, I grew up watching all of his work. And so then to be in the room with him, I was completely overwhelmed. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, just do what you do and try the scenes. And he's very, he's obviously incredibly spontaneous, and the Meisner technique is probably, I would say, a lot of what Dustin does. I'm speaking for him, but so a lot of it was just playing in the scenes when I was auditioning. It was when I got the role, I couldn't believe it. It was just like, are you joking? So it was more like trying to be cool and stay calm through those periods. And then, I would go and audition for things and not get them. And I was just like, but this is such a great time to just have the chance to audition. I remember going and auditioning down at the Public Theatre with Kevin Kline for the role of Ophelia in his Hamlet, and I didn't get it. And I was like, oh, I got the audition. I got to audition with Kevin Kline. And all of that that's great. That's experience, right? Every audition, you learn something and you're in there trying something. I remember auditioning with Robert De Niro for the role in Casino. And I was too young, and I went in, I was all dressed up. I know, here's a story for you. And I dressed up totally as the character, and I walked down and I'd done so much prep, and I walked in, and there's Martin Scorsese and De Niro, and I did it. And I was completely, like, inside I was dying. And then my agent got a call with some feedback saying it was really good. I was just too young. And but that feedback was everything, which is another thing that I really try to do when people audition, is give feedback. Because those tidbits, you're like so hungry for them, even if and I'm sure other actors relate to this, you don't get the role, but the feedback is like, oh, I was close, or I should have done this, or maybe that, those things can really help you. So. I'm jabbering on.
No, we're here to hear you talk. I am curious, though. It must be years since you've auditioned. Do you remember even the last time you auditioned?
I see almost every role as an audition, because you never know what the next job's going to be, right? So sometimes just a meeting or a chance meeting, or the way in which you interact can lead to something else. So this is the other wonderful thing to tell actors, is you may not get that job, but that may lead to something else. You never know. And that is the gorgeous part of our industry, is it can change on a dime, and you never know what is around the corner. And that where something leads. So that's why don't phone an audition in. Always do the best you can with that. Try to be off page so that you can connect. Because so much of it is they're wanting to read the way you think and the way you respond, and those things are really important. And don't ever just phone in an audition, because that could really, that isn't good. You just never know where it's going to lead. And you may not get that role, but you may get that role,
Did you ever have any of those like disastrous auditions, whether it was, due to circumstances out of your control? Oh, really? What was your worst?
Yeah, and I think just where I'm just totally wrong for it, or I got really nervous, or kept treading on the lines, or, had some stage fright and couldn't remember, had only got the pages late the night before, and had sort of crammed and tried to get in there, and so hadn't quite gotten a grasp of what the character was or the accent, all of those things. So another thing is, a lot of times I would say, because, being Australian, you're going, well, I only got the pages at 11 p.m. They sent them through to me, and I've got to be here, and it's now 9:30. And I've tried to prepare, but I'm not going to do the accent. I'm just going to do the performance. And that can sometimes work, because, doing a bad accent, an accent you can learn.
Yeah.
And work on, and if you have the time, but trying to sort of do it and do it badly, it's much better to do the performance and show the actual what your understanding of the scenes and what you're bringing to the scenes, than try to have a perfect accent in an audition.
At this point now,
I don't know. Some people may disagree with that, but that was always my sort of way of thinking about it.
it's worked for you, so I'd say it works. We all know now that you can do comedy, but I feel like another big turning point was when you did Gus Van Sant's 1995 film To Die For which you won your first Golden Globe Award. I knew you could do comedy because I saw you on Saturday Night Live in 1993 and you were brilliant.
With Mike Myers and Chris
Yes.
Farley and Adam Sandler. That's when I met Adam Sandler.
That's right. You played
Yeah.
New Girlfriend in a
Yeah.
Denise sketch. Yeah, the Denise show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I remember being so impressed. I remember that was a turning point, at least for me, going, she's funny. Someone put her in a comedy.
I remember the Mike Myers skit and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. Well, it felt like drama school.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, this is what we did, you know? So to have that opportunity to work with him and he'd written the skit, you know, everyone would pitch their ideas and their skits and some of them would get through. I mean, that is a hair-raising week, that Saturday Night Live week. That's like live wire act stuff. But, you know, it was really fun for me because I was able to just go, that's part of the just give it a go, just try it. Admittedly, there's millions of people watching, but at the same time, because I'd had that kind of rigorous drama school background where you're just, you know, going, okay, try this, playing the princess in Sweet Boat of Youth, all of those things, they kind of help with that. I'd also done in my drama school the mime work, and I say this repeatedly, in the mime classes, you know, where you're doing all of the mime work and pretending you're patting a dog, and you know you spend hours creating the teacup that you're about to drink from and the sensation of what the china feel, every single little bit, which when you're doing it you're like, oh, I just want to give me a scene, I want to do that. Okay, we'll put 2 hours in on this mime class every week. That has been one of the most important things I learned. So to all actors out there, do your mime classes, because now with green screen, so many times you're pretending. So I'm in a movie, Golden Compass, they're like, so you've got the monkey on your shoulder, and there's no monkey. There's nothing there. And I was like, whew, lucky I've done this mime class. I can feel the fur. I can feel the fur of the monkey, you know, all of those, feed the monkey. All of those things became so necessary. And then I did a film, Dogville, where there literally was no walls. And it's like, okay, there's the wall. Here's the doorknob. I can see it. I can feel it. I can turn it. All of those things suddenly were it became like one of the most important classes I'd done.
I love that you mentioned Dogville because you worked with Lars von Trier.
Yeah.
And I mentioned Gus Van Sant earlier. And obviously you've worked with so many auteurs, from Baz Luhrmann to Jane Campion, Stanley Kubrick. I mean, that's insane. I know that all directors are so different and you probably have to sort of adjust your style per director. But dream scenario, what do you hope for from a director when you show up to set?
Belief in me, the ability to direct me, to sort of rigorously get in there and go, I know you can do this, and let's try this, and knowing when they've got it, you know, going, got it. And I can go, really? And they can go, yeah. And that feeling is such relief, because when a director looks to you, and also I think obsession, I love obsession.
So Kubrick was
I like artists who are obsessed. I just do. It requires that. I mean, I'm not a nonchalant kind of whatever. I love the I love the passion and the obsession and the commitment and the going back home and thinking about it and coming back in with more ideas. And it's just a beautiful thing to work with, to work like that with other actors, to work with a director that way, to work with any sort of writer that way. It's wonderful.
I'm really curious, in Dogville, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, you were there, but like you said, there's no set.
I think I was.
Yeah. There's just lines on the floor on a stage.
Yes.
Did you know in advance that that's how it would be shot? Because I heard a rumor you didn't know, and I just think it would be strange to sign on to that and then show up.
No, I knew.
You did know.
No, I mean, when I signed, I wanted to work with Lars von Trier because I'd seen Breaking the Waves. I'd seen all his work, but I'd seen Breaking the Waves. I was stunned. I was stunned at those performances and what he achieved with that film, and Emily Watson and Stellan. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. And I wanted to work with him. And it was sort of, you know, I think I'd done Moulin Rouge. I was in a, you know, in terms of just my own space and my own life, I was lost. And so a lot of my life, whenever I'm lost, I get lost in my work artistically. I was in pain, you know, just in terms of my emotional state. And I was like, I want to go off to this place in Sweden, Trollhättan, and work with this director. And I was very, very interested in the style, which was Brechtian. And I was willing, you know, we all lived together. That's when I met Patty Clarkson and Lauren Bacall. We were all living together there in Sweden, my idea of heaven. And it would get dark at 3 p.m. and we were on a soundstage. And at about 2 p.m., Lars would go, let's have some peach schnapps. We're done. And that was it. You know, we'd shoot sort of 7 to 2 and then we go back and prepare for the rest of the day. And it was really difficult. The role was really difficult. The state of being of that character was difficult. And Lars is unusual. But all of the actors, Paul Bettany, all of them were just fantastic. And it was an odd existence, right up my alley. There was snow outside, and it's everything that you go, oh, wow, this is why I'm an actor. Yeah. I love this. I'm with other actors. We're kind of we're in this bubble, a creative bubble, and this weird thing, and this will be etched in my memory forever. And we're working with this really avant-garde director on this really avant-garde film. How fantastic.
It sounds like really almost like a little theater troupe that he put together.
Yeah. And he's unusual because he operates the camera. He's the Steadicam operator. So he has the whole apparatus on him and he's got the camera. And I'll always remember this about Lars is he would be shooting you, he'd go again. No, start again. But when you were really sort of panicking or not getting it, or he would put his hand out under the camera and hold your hand.
Wow.
So I forgave Lars everything because of that. How wonderful was that? So, and he would hold your hand and you would do the scene and he would hold your hand. And it was a sort of so that was really fascinating to me. And then he would, you know, you'd go, well, he'd go again and he would say, you go, well, and he'd go, I just want you to do the whole thing laughing now. And I'd be like, well, no, but I'm meant to be, he goes, do it again and just laugh all the way through it. So it's that kind of experimentation, which I love.
Was there much room?
And then he would edit it together.
Really? Together?
And I look at some of those images and there was one time, though, when I had to put the collar on my neck. And this was really weird. And it was a big metal collar and they've got to lock it. And it literally would lock. And I'm like meant to be carrying this huge metal thing around my neck with the lock on, which takes a lot of trust as an actor. And I'm meant to start to choke. So they put the lock on me and they lock it. And I'm like going like that. And I'm literally choking because it's like pushing on my pipe. And I'm like, and then he says cut. And I'm like, and then they undo it. I'm like, I was really choking. I was really choking. And that was frightening.
Wow.
I know. I learned my lesson there, like always have a signal that says, help, I'm in trouble. I need help.
Wow. That's good. Yeah. Just in any set, I think, even when there isn't a dangerous stunt, just have a signal saying, I need help.
I need help. Yeah. Well, because the other thing, and I always say this to actors, is never cut a take.
Really?
I was taught it really young. Yeah. I've never uttered cut.
Really? You've never,
Ever.
have you ever broken during a take and you just let it go?
I've laughed or things have gone wrong. Oh, yeah, totally. But I've never said the word cut.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I was about 14 when I was taught that. I can't remember who came up, and I think I did say cut. And they were like, you are never, ever allowed to say cut.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So that's etched in my brain. And so I never cut a take. Even if everything goes wrong in the take, I still keep going. I mean, obviously, if I was in real physical danger, I probably wouldn't say cut. I'd just be like, help, you know, but I would not, I just can't say the word cut. It feels like you're cutting the magic. I'm not the best the judge of that. You know what I mean? I'm not a good a lot of times what I think when I think it's not good is actually the magic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of almost like a good discipline to have. But obviously if you're in physical danger or something absolutely, you know, life-threatening is going to happen, then say cut. But
Dogville was such an interesting choice too, because you were coming off this amazing trio of films that you released in the space of 2 years back in 2001, 2002. I mean, they could be more different. You talk about range, Moulin Rouge, The Others, and The Hours. And looking at that trio, all made during that time, I'm curious how you choose your roles. Maybe it's changed over time, but you know, they're so different and such different parts. And you just seem to have a really good instinct for what's going to work.
No, I don't. I just, I don't really have, it's just kind of, I go with the flow on that in a weird way. Like if I feel like I want to work with someone, or if I just even like the director, or I like the character, or I feel you know, I went and did a film with Werner Herzog. I wanted to work with Werner and I wanted to go to the desert. And, you know, so for all different reasons, I'll do things. And that was probably one of my greatest experiences, was being in the desert with Werner Herzog.
That sounds like a movie in and of itself. I just want to see you guys hanging out in the desert.
Riding camels and right up on the Algerian border, and
wow.
It was pretty extraordinary, you know. So there's just different reasons for doing different things, but it's yeah, I don't know. I wish there was some sort of incredible. No, I'm deeply committed to independent filmmaking in the sense of just giving the opportunity to auteurs and allowing them to be born, so to speak, and helping if I have anything to contribute in terms of power or financing to help those people get their films made. That's a wonderful thing to be able to do. I've been in the position where I haven't had that opportunity, so to now be able to go, because I grew up watching art films. I grew up going to the cinema and watching films from all over the world about all different things. And that's probably my deepest love and deepest commitment. And I love international films.
Yeah.
I love being transported into cultures and places and people's minds that I would never, ever get to enter. I mean, that's just glorious.
You've played such a wide
and
variety.
So important.
Yeah,
right
I agree. I've just seen
so important because that's how I built my compassion. That's how I built my empathy. That's how I built my understanding and continuing to build it. My abhorrence at things, when you see something that's so like terrifyingly violent and there's reason to it and you go, oh, this is I've entered into this world. Those things lead you to making changes. For me, I will get out there and go, I got to get involved now. I got to change. And I'll look at somebody across the street and feel so much more for them because I've just seen a film about their culture or their life, or, you know, I can imbue them with things that brings me closer. So
one of the most recent films, honestly, that had that effect on me was Lion, where you played Sue Brierly.
Right.
I remember like seeing that movie and being a much nicer person for the next week. It was such
Right.
a kind, inspiring movie. And
Mm.
you have played so many real people, but is Sue the only
Mm.
person you've been able to meet that you played?
No, I've met other people. Sue, I connected with. Sue's got such a big heart. You know, that film is obviously about love. It's
Mhm.
about wherever you find your mother, you can have more than one mother. And if, you know, the idea of loving a child, just being given love, and the love that they're given, taking them and never saying, well, you have to love me because I'm your mother. Always saying, yes, we can have two, three mothers. There's different ways in which people mother a child, but the power of good love on a child is just exquisite. And Sue gave those children and is still giving those now adult men good love along with their birth mothers, and the connection between those two women I thought was a really beautiful story too. And then also just the power of overcoming enormous odds, what he did, Saru, in finding his birth mother through that Google Earth. And I mean, it's an astounding story, and it's true.
Mhm.
So yeah.
When you're playing a real person like Virginia Woolf, or even someone current like Gretchen Carlson, you obviously played Grace Kelly as well. Um, I imagine it has to be intimidating knowing that this was a real person who might have family out there. People can compare you
Mm.
to the real person. But do you also like
Mm.
that way of working? Because there must be so much research to draw on.
um Yeah. I mean, I suppose I don't look at it any differently. I just try to be true to who the person is, and sometimes you're only depicting them. Depends how big the role is. You know, with Gretchen, with Sue, I was playing a supporting role with a limited amount of time to give, and it's not their story, so it's giving a part of their story and trying to honor that for them, but also be truthful, you know. And I think what's wonderful, and someone like Virginia, it was more trying to connect to her through her writings with the help of all of those, you know, when David Hare gives you that speech about I
Mm.
have the right to choose what I want to do with my life. That there penetrated every cell of my body. I was like, yes, we do. As human beings, we get the right to choose what we want to do with our lives and how we want to live and how we want to conduct ourselves. We do have that right. And I deeply believe it. So that worked for me, you know, but I'm given words by David Hare and direction from Stephen Daldry, and then the magnificence of Virginia in all her complexity. And somehow you just go, I hope that this will thread through, but I believe what I'm saying and what I'm doing. And in the weirdest way, I think when someone's gone and you're playing them, maybe there's some wonderful thing happening where you're, you know, somehow the conduit for them still. And especially if they've been an author and they've written, that's one of the beauties of, you know, having their great literature still. And I love that you can still exist. Your existence is still here and really helping people, and they're still living and feeling you.
Mm-hmm.
That's with music, art, writing, performance.
When people see you on the street, not that we're really out and about amongst people right now, but you've played so many different roles in so many different genres. What do people want to talk about the most? I know there's a huge group of Practical Magic fans who are like hardcore fanatics of that movie. Obviously, Moulin Rouge has a big following.
Yes.
What's the one that people keep bringing up to you the most?
I Celeste in Big Little Lies, and actually Undoing right now, probably because it's current and so many people have watched it. So they're always talking to me about that.
Yeah.
And Celeste was, you know, from Big Little Lies, was probably because of the story, in terms of the abuse and the relationship. And a lot of people come to me and say, I either have lived that, or I know somebody that's lived that, or I know somebody that's living that now, and want to tell me their stories. And that was sort of a very, and then, something like Moulin Rouge is more like, I love Satine. And I go, I loved Satine. But it's lovely to still be working where there's roles that are connecting currently. You know, it's not yesteryear things. It's things that are of now. That's a real pleasure and a blessing. And, you know, I always cite Jessica Tandy's career, so hopefully I can be on stage in my 80s remembering my lines.
You know, I saw you on stage in the Blue Room, and it was wonderful. Yeah. And have you wanted to get back into theater again?
I did a play on the West End 5 years ago, which was about Rosalind Franklin, who was female scientist that discovered DNA. She was not attributed to discovering it, and she died at 35 of ovarian cancer. And my father was a scientist, and it was really, and just in terms of heralding female scientists and their stories, it just was such a great thing to do. I loved doing it. It was called Photograph 51 because that was the image. The Photograph 51 was the one that helped crack DNA that we know of today. Obviously, Watson and Crick were awarded the Nobel Prize, but Rosalind really deserved to be acknowledged in that and wasn't. So that was part of the reason I wanted to do that.
Wow.
It was a really great experience to do it on stage. I didn't get to bring it to Broadway. I hope somebody does, but I didn't because I have young children, and I think any actor will tell you it's very difficult with the children. My children are a little bit older now, so it's slightly easier, but juggling, you know, one of them was 3 at the time and missing bedtime and all of those things. That's a big thing as an actor. And when you're doing it for 3, 4, 5 months, and where's mummy? Mummy's at the theatre. So, but it was a great thing to do, and the rigorous sort of exploration of being on stage and that technique and the need to do theatre work. I just, you know, it's so important for an actor.
Mm-hmm.
So,
talking about the films you're recognized for, I'm wondering on the flip side of that, you know, quite often you do these labors of love and they don't get the love and respect you'd like them to at the time. Is there a movie from your filmography that, you know, people might not be familiar with that you would want them to check out?
I mean, I did things, you know, smaller films. Rabbit Hole was a labor of love for me. Destroyer was something I really wanted to, you know, put myself on the line for. I love Karin Kusama's work and supporting her, and you know, didn't find the audience we hoped it would, but it was just great to be able to be trusted to go and do something like that. I had this wonderful makeup artist, Bill Corso, and you know, I did a film Fur with Downey Jr., which was a crazy thing about Diana. I do weird films at times, and I love that. Small, odd films, Paperboy with Lee Daniels, where it was just like, wow, down there in Louisiana doing this crazy sort of noir role and being trusted to play that character. I loved that character. And actually SAG was wonderful. They acknowledged that. The actors acknowledged me in that role. And that was so gratifying, because to be, you know, the film itself was kind of, we really tried to get it out there, and it just didn't catch on. But for the actors to acknowledge the performance that way, I remember that when I got that news, I was like, oh, thank you. Because she was a great role. Yeah. And we had no money. I remember sort of doing my own hair and makeup with the wig and sending it into Lee on an iPhone going, see, I can play this. That was an audition for me. I was like, see, I can play her. You know, so there's always a story behind everything. But that was lovely, and lovely to be acknowledged for The Undoing, because that was a big kind of role in terms of just, it's not physically bold, but it's mentally was this crazy labyrinth, roller coaster maze in a way of emotions and ideas and having to keep things hidden and quiet. And having that acknowledged was really like, wow. So there's still a lot of wows. Wow.
Even now, there's still a wow?
Beyond.
Oh.
You have no idea. Yeah. I have a mother who's 81, about to be 81 in March. And she's, has some massive health issues and things going on. So in the weirdest way right now, just her seeing that and going, she goes, yeah, go Nikki. And it's really nice. So I'm very much sharing that with her. And I have a 12-year-old who wants to be a director. So really? She's like, yeah, she's obsessed. And she's on the path. Wow, she's editing, she's writing, she's directing. So all those actors out there, get ready. Sunday Urban's coming your way.
Good, no pressure. I'm all for it.
She may not have any money to pay you on her first few films, but hey, she's got talent.
I am curious about The Undoing because you're both the star and producer. Did it come to you first? Were you looking for projects as a producer? Is it always a package deal? Because obviously Big Little Lies, you were also a producer.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I mean, David E. Kelly gave me episode 1 and 2 and said, would you have a look at this? I think you'd be a great Grace. And that never happens. You get given some great scripts and we were able then to get the money and make it. A lot of times you'll read a script and you'll go, okay, and then you can't get the financing, you can't get it made. I've had that happen many times. And then, so, everything is different. And right now we just got told we got a green light on a new series that we're going to be doing, an anthology actually, which is going to be all female directors for Apple, which is really, really exciting because they're unusual little stories, but we're able to amplify the voice of these female directors right now. And that's a big, we're very happy about that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm in one of them, and then there'll be some great roles for a lot of other women. So this is, written by women, directed by women, starring women.
As a producer, how involved do you get in choosing the director and the casting, specifically on The Undoing, but also on this new show?
It depends. It depends on what's needed and what different directors want and how much they want. I mean, a lot of times as an actor, when you're producing, I go, okay, I'll step into that role now because I don't want to be blurring the lines. I'll step up when you need me. Suzanne Bier and I talk about this a lot, and Jean-Marc Vallée. And, when you need me to step into there, or you need me to go to bat for an actor, or you need me to say we have to have this location, I can help with that. But a lot of it is just I pledge to stay in the space of the performance and not be sort of blurring that or making the director uncomfortable. And then, I'm also a hired actor where I'll just go and I don't have anything to do with the production. I'm just there along with everybody else, which is what I just did with Robert Eggers. And in Belfast, I didn't have any chance. That wasn't my show. I was just there as an actor, part of the group. Yeah.
He's an amazing
Which was
director.
a great thing. Yes, so good. And I got to work with Anya Taylor-Joy on that, and I got to work with Alex Skarsgård again, and Klaus Bang, and Bjork's in it, and I didn't get any scenes with her, but it was a really interesting, fabulous Ethan Hawke, who I've never gotten to work with, who I love.
So good.
Yeah. So that was a joy. Really, I mean, it was tough, really hard, but a privilege to be asked to do it. And that was part of my thing of going, get on a plane and go over there. And they promised me I'd be safe and that there'd be protocols in place, but I was pretty frightened, I have to say. But they kept their pledge and they kept us safe, and nobody got COVID, and we were able to make the film.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I see that. Such an amazing filmmaker and cast.
Yeah. Yeah. An auteur, right?
Speaking of auteurs, you mentioned the Undoing director, Suzanne Bier.
Mm-hmm.
She directed all 6 episodes, which is
She
pretty
did.
unusual. Did you have
Yes.
any say in choosing her, or the fact that she would do all of them? Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. I wanted to work with her for such a long time, and part of my desire to do the project was to, to be able to bring it to life, David E. Kelly's script, but also to work with a woman who was going to really make this her own and bring so much. And so she was the first person we went out to, and she said yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and I sat with her and we talked it through, and it was fantastic.
I heard, is this correct? That was a 5-month shoot?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Every day. I was on every day on that. Yeah. I think it was 5.5 actually.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Are you the kind of
long days and long scenes, and a lot of just, it was physically and mentally taxing. But hey, what a fantastic chance, right? But yeah, it was like we were running a marathon on that. And it was Susanna and I together because, obviously the director's there every day. But a lot of times as an actor, you'll have time off. And I just really didn't have I think I had a few days here and there. But, I had the support of Hugh and all of those incredible actors. I mean, you come and you sit opposite Lily Rabe and you watch her do her thing and you're just like, oh, my God, thank God we've got Lily, So.
Noah Jupe is fantastic too.
Noah,
great young actor. Wow. Yeah, he's amazing.
Man now, young man.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Growing
right.
up. Yeah. He was a boy then and he's gone from boy to man. Yeah.
When you're doing a role that's challenging like that, and especially for a long time, are you able to leave it behind at the end of the day? Do you sort of carry characters with you, or do you have sort of a method of getting rid of them? Or maybe you're just one of those people who can step in and out of them pretty easily.
Not me. No. I'm not that actor. I'm the actor that comes home and it penetrates my dreams and it has a massive effect on my life. So I have to be careful what I say yes to and how many things I say yes that carry dark themes. And I've just learnt that I have to balance those things because, I'm not the actor that just walks away from it and shrugs and doesn't think about it at night. I wish I was. I would like to have that ability, but that's not my past. So I carry it. And that's that. And I've tried, and I try all the, the meditation and the wiping the light from the thing and trying to, all those things. I've tried them. And it's not me. It penetrates my psyche. It's who I am, and that's that. So I'm actually very careful now where I go and how often I tread into that territory and all of those things, because it affects me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm really happy that you then went and did the prom, because I think Washington would be a fun place to live for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just a delight.
Yeah, and just a love bug. A love bug is what I call her. Mm-hmm. My kids love that movie, so I watched that over the Christmas break with them, and they were like, "Oh, Mom, this is cool. It's so cool." So that was nice. Yeah.
What do you think has been your most challenging role, or the role that was hardest to shake?
No, I can't answer that. That's the favored child. Yeah. You can't answer that question. I mean, it's a journey. Mm-hmm. Who knows? There's different roles that I go back and look at, and I'm like, but the journey continues. So I don't know. I'm lucky to have all these different sort of people that are part of me, that are part of my lifetime journey, and what a wonderful thing to sort of have had the chance to embody them. Onward, hopefully. And not backward, onward. I hope.
Well, I can't wait to see what you do next. It's always something interesting and exciting. You just, like I said, I've never seen you phone it in. And I know you're working with David E. Kelly again on Nine Perfect Strangers.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
Melissa McCarthy and Michael Shannon and Regina Hall. I just so Bobby. We have a cast that's incredible. Tiffany Boone, this extraordinary cast. So I'm very excited for you to see them in this show.
Again, it feels
I'm
like
happy to be in it alongside these people because I was going, wow, this is a cast.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
David Kelly, you've sort of becoming part of his repertory theater company as well.
Oh, please. I hope.
Well, again, I want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your insight and your craft with your fellow artists. And thank you really for all the work you've done, both on screen and off. It's so appreciated.
Well, more to be done. And thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. It makes me sentimental, but it also kind of fires me up too. So, much love, and to all of the actors out there and all of the people that are really struggling right now. We're here. We've got your back. And as I said, onward for all of us. So.
Thank you so much.